Hi everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Today, what I kind of wanted to talk about was having doubts in relationships. Like, is this healthy? And when is it at the point where it's like, okay, you're probably just in the wrong relationship? Because I think this is something that a lot of us find very difficult. Because, like, the amount of content that I see about this, like, how to know if you're with the right person, how to know when it's time to leave, how to know, there's so many, like, we're obviously all having a hard time with that. Do you know what I mean? Like, we, the amount of fucking content made about it, we clearly all struggle with overthinking it. And I think it makes complete sense though, because who you choose to date is massive. It's like it's one of the biggest choices. Obviously, it depends how you choose to date, but it can be one of the biggest choices that you make in your life. So it makes sense that we overthink it because, in a way, I think that's healthier than, I don't know, there's a line. I think it's healthy to have a certain level of doubts and be kind of realistic and kind of question shit a bit, you know. You don't want to be in a relationship and just not question anything because it's like having rose tinted glasses, I think, is more dangerous and more kind of like irresponsible emotionally. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's worse. I think it's healthier to have a couple doubts. However, there is a line. I think if you're constantly doubting your relationship, this is why it's so fucking difficult, is because if you're someone with anxiety like me, I like to have answers. My brain my brain doesn't like when I don't know what's going to happen. And I think this is obviously the case for a lot of us, hence why there's so much fucking content and we all are like desperately watching these videos that say like 3 ways to know that this is not your person, and we're all like, oh my god, I need to read all the three and then think about my relationship and think about my boyfriend and think, do any of these relate to me, as if anyone else can know. Sometimes this content can be helpful though. Sometimes what people say can be kind of eye-opening. Like, I've had that before where I've been in a relationship. I honestly think though, if you are getting, like, if you see a video on your Instagram feed or something that says like, here's like 10 ways to know that you need to, like, this isn't your person, do you know what I mean? And you click on that thinking, oh my fucking god, and like you're reading through them, like, to me that's a bit of a sign that like it probably isn't. I don't know, I don't want to I don't want to like fuel the delusion even more and fuel the anxiety even more. But to me, if you're like, oh, I need to like read that, I need to check, it's like you're already kind of in that headspace that, like, why are you thinking that way? I would like question that a little bit because I do think, but again, it's like that could be anxiety. Fuck this. I don't think I should be coming on here and talking about this. I'm just, the more I'm talking about it, the more I'm realizing that it's one of those things where it's so hard to decipher between anxiety and a genuine doubt. That's that's what gets a lot of people, I think, and that's what's gotten me before. Where it's like, am I just being a little bit avoidant? Am I just a little bit scared or whatever? Or is this not my person? Because something that I have noticed a lot online is we like to kind of intellectualize stuff and we like to label things and we like to, when it comes to like attachment styles and love languages and all of these kinds of things, say you're in a relationship and it really doesn't feel right. Like, it just doesn't feel like there's something off. I think a lot of the time we end up just being like, oh, it's probably my avoidant attachment style, or it's probably because of this and that. And it's like, sometimes I've been in relationships before that obviously weren't for me or I'd still be in them. Um, and, it's wrong on a few levels. It doesn't feel right, whatever. But like, I will just be like, okay, well, I know I have this issue and I know I have this issue and I know I can be kind of avoidant and I know this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I kind of like intellectualize the fuck out of it when it's like, at the end of the day, Brooke, even if you are an avoidant, do you fucking like this person? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a time and a place, I think, to be bringing psychology and shit like that into your relationship. And there's a time where it's like, where you've got like that much doubt in you, it almost feels like you're kind of checking every single area of like where it could be you, which I guess is better to do than to just leave. Do you know what I mean? But like, it can make you start to be really fucking critical of yourself when it's like you might not be doing anything wrong. You might just be incompatible. And like, you don't want to drive yourself insane trying to work out the cause of like why something feels off when sometimes it's just like, it's not that complicated. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes I think we overcomplicate the fuck out of it and we're like, oh my God, it could be this and this. And I read an article about this. Or maybe this is just me. And then it's like, at the end of the day, it's not that complicated. You either want to be with someone or you don't. And I think that's something that when you're in a relationship and you're having doubts and you're kind of in your head ruminating, it feels so complicated and it feels so like, but there's so many things to work out and there's so many questions to ask myself and I don't know. But it's like, at the end of the day, it is kind of just a simple question you're asking yourself, like, do I want to be with this person? Does this feel right or not? Because it shouldn't be feeling that difficult that much of the time. Like, I don't know. Again, like, I'm 21. Have I like been married and shit? Like, no, like there's people that have way more experience to talk about this. I'm kind of coming on here because this is something that I have experienced so much. Like, I remember like in my last relationship, this lighting is so ugly. I'm so sorry. Yeah, my last relationship, I remember watching like fucking YouTube video after YouTube video of people talking about this kind of thing, like how to know blah 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 and like when to leave. And I used to watch them and be like, okay, like this is gonna give me my answer. This is gonna tell me what I should do. Like that was always my issue of like, I don't know what to do and I want someone to tell me because I'm having doubts, but I don't know if I should just work it out and blah 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 blah. And you can drive yourself mad. Honestly, it can make you so miserable because there's a line where you can only think the same thoughts so many times before you're going insane. Like, it's one thing to have doubts and kind of ruminate for a while, but if you're doing that for like months, it's almost like you hit a point where even if this relationship could be salvaged, is it worth losing your fucking marbles in the meantime? No. And I also do think if it feels that stressful, like if you're watching this and you're like, I know what I feel like that, like you'd fucking know, do you know what I mean? Then I do have to question, like, to me, that is a red flag on its own because it's like, I feel like if you're compatible and you talk to each other about how you feel, there shouldn't be like an entire separate thing going on in your head. But like I said, I do think there is some advice and some content that has helped me and that did help me clear my mind a little bit and work out what I wanted a little bit more. And there is a couple pieces of advice that have stuck with me that I thought I'd share. If you're watching this and you're like, I'm losing my fucking mind, and you know, it might help. One of them that was actually from Matthew McConaughey, who I love. I love that man. His advice, this was kind of about a different topic, but it's a transferable piece of advice. He was talking about like he would get offered like a role in something and he didn't know whether to take it or not and blah blah blah, and he would be like, okay, I'm gonna spend 24 hours as if I have accepted it and I'm gonna live with that and feel what that feels like in my body and in my mind. Just, okay, I've taken the job, that's what I'm doing. And then the next 24 hours, the day after, he's gonna live in the reality of I turned it down, I didn't take it, and see how that feels, rather than going back and forth like all day. Like 5 minutes you're like, okay, I'm done with this relationship, and then the next 5 minutes you're like, no, I should work it out. And then that, you're not gonna know. His advice would spend 24 hours living with the fact, okay, imagine you're not gonna be in this relationship anymore, you've decided to walk away from it and that it's not for you and you're gonna move on from it. Live with that for 24 hours and see if it feels better. If that feels a little bit more relaxed and like a little bit more like, shit, this is kind of nice, that to me is a sign that you should perhaps do that. Because I do think from the people that I've spoken to that are really in love with their partner and they're like, you know, been married a long time and stuff, like if I was to ask my mum this, if I said that to her, like, okay, imagine that you're not with your husband for the next 24 hours, she'd be like, why the fuck would I want to do that? Why the fuck would I want to do that? Like, no. So the fact that if you think, okay, let's spend the next 24 hours putting myself in a different life, I'm not with this person, I've left, I've made that decision, and it feels kind of good, it shouldn't feel that good. Do you know what I mean? That is a piece of advice that did stick with me. And again, you could use that with any decision. I feel like that's just a useful thing. And to an extent, obviously, it's going to feel more comfortable in the I'm choosing to stay with them. It's more familiar. It's not about which one's more comfortable. It's which one feels better. Do you know what I mean? Like which one feels like the right choice. Because I do think that does quite clearly show you how you feel. Because I remember, like, you know, I've had in a relationship where, you know, when you take like a break, a lot of people are like, a break's like, if you have to take a break, is your relationship not fucked? Like, I don't know, that's a conversation in its own. But I've had that before where, like, you take a break for like a week or something because you need to like clear your mind, work out something. I've done that before and I've taken like a week away and I've been like, oh my God, I'm thriving. Oh my God, I'm thriving. I don't miss them. I feel great. This is what I mean. I think at the end of the day, the answer is, do you feel better without them? That's, at the end of the day, the question. Are you happier and enjoying your life more? Again, you're obviously not going to be at like the start because you're going to be going through the emotional like withdrawals and shit, but like I think you can still tell, are you a little bit happier? Like that would actually be a piece of advice from my experience, is if you do take some time away or like, you know, you do come to this realization, even sometimes it's just like a day where maybe like you don't really go on your phone and you're just out having a nice time, maybe you're by yourself, maybe you're with your friends, and you have like the nicest fucking day, and you're like, at the end of the day you realize, oh, my boyfriend was nothing to do with that and I had the nicest day I've had in a long time. Again, like things like this, you know, pay attention to them because they are, to me, they're the signs. Like, you don't need to watch all this fucking content, which you will be doing if you're anything like me anyway. But it's shit like that to me that's like, ooh, that probably means this is not the relationship for you. If you're like, oh fuck, I didn't realize I've had the nicest day ever, and like, oh, I didn't speak to him once, that's not a coincidence. Like, that to me is really the main like way to work it out. And I think, like I said, if you're quite an anxious person, like you like answers, obviously everyone likes answers, but there is definitely a level of like anxiety that can be added where you're like, your brain just works in that way that's like, if I don't know what's happening, I can't fucking sit down. Like if you're one of those people like me, then the fact that you can never be 100%, you will never be 100% on if anyone is for you. You never fucking know. You can be pretty sure, and you can be like, this person, you know, in a lot of areas, I love them, you know, they make me really happy, we get along really well, we're really compatible, we're really similar in this way, and we like to do the same things and blah blah blah, share values and shit. You can never be 100% though if someone is the right person for you, or if a relationship is the right relationship. There's no such thing. I don't think there's any such thing. I think something can be right for you judged on how does it feel and do you want to be in it. I think that's the answer to me, is like, if I'm dating someone and it feels nice, I'm having a positive experience dating this person, it feels good and I want to be there, then that is currently the correct thing for me to be doing because I'm enjoying it and I want to be there. Obviously there's going to be times where you don't necessarily thrive and you're not loving it, and there might be moments where you're like, do I want to fucking be here? Like, this bitch is annoying me. But I think that's normal. Like, people are annoying and you could be really compatible and really like good for each other and piss each other off. Like that's different. But again, it's the frequency in which you are doubting this relationship. Are you actually thinking genuinely, do I want to be in this? Like, is this where I should be? Or should I, if you're thinking that genuinely, not just a fleeting thought of like, this bitch. Do you know what I mean? If you're genuinely like, should I go a different direction? Because I don't know if this feels like how a relationship should feel, and I don't really know if I'm happy. If you're thinking that a lot, you haven't passed my 2-part question. Are you enjoying it and do you want to be in it? And like, it's really not a lot to ask. That's the thing, is like, I remember when I was in this position, I would feel like, yeah, but that's like quite, that's quite a big thing. Like, to feel like you really want to be there and you're really enjoying it, like, that's unrealistic. But like, it's not. You should want to be there. You should be enjoying it most of the time. But like, there is a huge difference between having an argument with someone that you want to be with and having an argument with someone you don't want to be with. Because one of them, you genuinely think, what am I even doing? Burning up like all this energy into something that I don't know if I want to be in this. That is different to being like, I need like a few hours away from you because you're annoying me, but I'm obviously not going anywhere. Do you know what I mean? They're very different. And I think sometimes you just get used to being in a state of doubting something, and you get used to something feeling kind of lukewarm and kind of, it's not too bad, but it's not too good, and you kind of just get used to it. I also think how you talk about your partner and about your relationship to like your friends and family is quite indicative of indicative. Did I say that right? I don't know. Of the state of your relationship. Because when I've been in a relationship that is stressing me the fuck out and I do not want to be in it, but I haven't like admitted that to myself, anytime anyone asks me about it, you will get a 10-minute rant. You will. And I will, oh my god, who was it? Courtney Cox, I think. I think I saw Courtney Cox, a video of her, which she said if anything is like, it brings in like her high pitched voice, being like, it's not that bad, or like, I don't know. You know, when you go high pitched when you're kind of like trying to justify something, you're like, yeah, but like, she's like, if anything like isn't like in my genuine voice, like, no, I want to be in it, and it's like, she's like, no. If I catch myself talking about it in my high pitched voice, then I don't want to fucking do it. And I found that quite interesting. I've never thought about that, but people do that when they're kind of like, oh, it's not that bad. It's like, is it? Are you trying to convince yourself? But that's another piece of advice I thought was quite interesting. Like, when you're talking about it, do you sound like you're trying to convince yourself that you want to be there? But yeah, anyway, like I said, I've had it where like if a friend's like, oh, how's it going with this person? I'm like, and then I just like yap about it for like an hour, and it's just like nothing positive is being said. Do you know what I mean? And it's one thing to like vent and be like, oh my god, this is driving me mad, like blah 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 blah. But then again, like, I'm obviously like not going anywhere. I think that's the difference, is, do you know at your core that like I'm just venting, but like it kind of means it's just like therapeutic? Or are you like, oh my god, I need an outlet because I'm losing my marbles? Do you know what I mean? There's like a difference. I think a big part of it as well is like having doubts, like, and talking to who you're with about them. Like, I wouldn't be scared of doing that. And I wouldn't be, obviously, it's not ideal if someone comes to you and they're like, I'm having doubts. You know, it's obviously not like, oh my god, yay. Like, it's kind of shit. But at the same time, like, I feel like if you're both mature enough, then you should be able to talk about that, because you can like get rid of the doubt by talking about it. You know, you can have conversations about it and you can reassure each other, and you could maybe be like, well, I feel the same, like, what can we do? And you can work on it. And like, it doesn't need to be like festering in your brain. I think that is a big difference of like, why aren't you talking to your partner about it? You know? Because if it's kind of like this constant dialogue in your brain that's never really seeing the light of day, and your partner has no idea really what's going on or what you're feeling and how often you're thinking these things, then it's, to me, kind of like, obviously it could be the fact that like you're not bringing it up and that's your fault and you should be talking about it, and they would actually be quite accommodating, you know. It could be you, obviously, but like it also could be like, why do you not feel like you can say that? Why do you not feel like you can talk about that? Because letting these things live in your head and just kind of going over them in your head and then randomly venting to your friends for like absolutely hours and then just going back to overthinking it by yourself for hours, like it's just not the vibe. Like, talk about it. I think it's quite, I'm going to use the word indicative again, word of the day apparently, of, again, your relationship. If you can't talk to your partner about these things, or if you do and it does fucking nothing about your doubt, that is some information that's good to know. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're feeling like, I don't know, what could be a doubt? As if I need to think about that. Let's say your doubt is, or like the thing that you're ruminating over is like, let's say you like live together or like stay at each other's houses a lot. Maybe you feel like you're kind of falling into a rut and like it's feeling a little bit boring. Like, you're just kind of like staying there, getting ready, blah, blah, blah. There's no romance. Maybe that's your thing. You're like, I just feel like we're roommates. I feel like that's a common thing. Not necessarily roommates, because you don't have to live together, but just like friends who have sex. Do you know what I mean? Like, if that's maybe what you're feeling and you're like, I just feel like this relationship's kind of fucking grey, you know? I feel like that's the colour I associate that image with. And you talk to your partner about this, which you should. You should. You could so easily formulate some sort of plan. You could easily be like, right, what are we feeling and why? What's making us feel like this? What can we incorporate? Blah, blah, blah. Really, these things don't need to be arguments or issues. Like, really, you can just discuss that and it can actually be quite like a connecting experience. But like, ew, cringing at the thing I'm saying right now. But if you have that conversation and you kind of leave it feeling like, I don't feel like he really understood or got that or gives a shit or anything's gonna change, and like, do you know what I mean? If you feel like, I feel like I'm just bringing it up for the sake of, then I can say I tried, but like it's not doing anything. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so worth talking about it because it will really show you, oh shit, like I was worried about this and I was overthinking it, but like now I've brought it up, it's not a concern anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of dying down because I can see that it's going to change. I feel like that we're on the same page and we understand, blah, blah, blah. It should go that way. And like, obviously it's not always going to be that straightforward of like, oh, okay, amazing, let's do this. Let's have a date night every Saturday and we'll sit and talk, and we'll do, you know. Obviously sometimes it isn't always that like straightforward and like, oh, okay, sorted. Sometimes it might take like, okay, we'll talk about it again in a month and then we'll need to try something else because that didn't fucking work, you know. But for me, I've always had like, again, like I don't really feel like I've been in like a really healthy like situation. So like half of this is coming from my imagination and what I've seen other people have. But like, I feel like, I mean, I have been in relationships. There have been times where it's been healthy. Like, there's been times where I haven't like felt all of these things, you know. And in those times when maybe there's something that I'm like, okay, this isn't ideal or I don't feel like amazing about this, it's like, we'll work it out and it's not a massive concern to me because it feels like you're a team, you know? It feels like you're on the same page and like you can talk about anything and like it's not that deep. Like, there's no part of you that's like, this is gonna be a deal breaker. It's like, no, this will just get fucking sorted out. Like, I don't need to think about it 8 times every day. I just feel like this is such an interesting topic. Because, like I said at the start, who you date, who you choose to date, it's huge. It can affect your quality of life massively. It can, you know, who you date rubs off on you. You can become quite like your partner. Like, it's fucking huge. Like, you're choosing who you want to spend, like, so much time with, potentially live with, potentially start a family with. Like, it's not, if you're someone who is overthinking this or doubting it or being like, fuck, why is this stressing me out so much? Like, why is this driving me mad? Then, like, to an extent, like, as it should. Like, no, it shouldn't drive you mad. But, like, you know, like I said, I think it's healthier to question a little bit, because a lot of people go into dating with the rose-colored glasses or whatever the fuck. And I just think it's so stupid. Obviously, to an extent at the start, maybe that's like unavoidable. I don't know. You know, in like the honeymoon phase or whatever. I don't even know if that's real. I don't even know if that's a myth. There is like a what's it called? Mutual positive projection phase. It's like that's the like psychology term for a honeymoon phase, where you're projecting your positive sides to the other person. Like, obviously, that's how you court. Is that the right word? What am I talking about? You know what I mean? Like, gain a mate. You have to like try and at least be somewhat attractive. I think this is one of those things that like it feels a lot worse in your head. It feels, what's the phrase about something is halved when you talk about it? The weight of something is halved when you share it. I don't know. Basically, having doubts constantly in a relationship is no fucking joke. Like, that can really feel heavy and horrible. And I think my main piece of advice would be, whether you choose to stay with this person or not, like whatever you actually do, would be make some sort of movement towards something. Don't just stay stuck in the same place having the same thoughts on repeat for too long, because it just does so much damage to you. And it's so like, you can spend so much time doing that and you're just like miserable, and it puts such like a halt on you actually living your life and having a nice time. Like, it just ruins everything. So my advice would be, make some sort of movement towards, if you want to stay with this person, start trying to fix shit properly. Don't half-ass try and fix it. Do you know what I mean? Like, actually commit to trying. Even if you were just like, right, I'm gonna give myself the next 5 months and I'm gonna fucking try. And if then I still feel the same, I promise to end it. You have to promise with yourself that, like, I will leave at that point. You know, just my advice would be, have some sort of plan where some sort of movement is going to happen in the next 6 months. That would be my advice. If you think you're going to try, give yourself a deadline. I don't know if this is good advice, but this is like what I would suggest. So, you know, take it or leave it. Oh my God, it's really starting to rain. Yeah, where then at least, even if you're not enjoying it and it's hard, you know that, like, okay, this is temporary. If it's that bad, you don't have to wait the full 6 months. Like, you can just leave. You do have free will. But if you're like, okay, I think, to be honest, I've already tried everything that I could possibly try. If I gave it another 6 months, it's just another 6 months doing the same shit I've already tried. Like, there's nothing to salvage. I'm gonna scream if I have to be in this another month. Then you could even give yourself a deadline. Like, okay, I'm gonna give myself a month to leave this relationship. Like, I don't know necessarily how to do it, but this time next month I'm not going to be in it anymore, and I promise that to myself. And I'm going to tell my friends, and I'm going to tell my family that, like, I don't know if you need to do that. Maybe someone close to you. Just be like, if I haven't left this in a month, I want you to, like, smash my phone. Do you know what I mean? I don't know, some sort of like punishment. I think sometimes like that could keep you accountable, because the amount of times where I think I said to myself that, like, oh, I need to leave this, or I need to go, but I hadn't really told anyone how strongly I hated it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I told people that, like, oh, I don't know if this is for me, blah, blah, like, you know, whatever. But I hadn't necessarily been like, I need to get out of this relationship, I'm going to lose my mind. I hadn't gone that far. And then it kind of gave me the excuse to stay in it, because I'm like, like, you know, I'm just being a bit of a pussy. Whereas if you if you tell people, then they will ask, I thought you were going to leave. Do you know what I mean? If it's a genuine friend, I don't know, because relationships aren't that straightforward. And if a friend came to me and they were like, no, I think I would call them out. If a friend came to me and they were like, I'm miserable, I need to get out of this relationship, I'm losing my marbles, I need to be out of it in the next like month or so. If they weren't, I would be like, give me your phone. I'll dump him. Do you know what I mean? Like, that maybe that's shit advice, but I feel like you need some sort of plan in place with yourself that will relieve the anxiety as well, because then you're like, okay, I'm not just like stuck in this cycle and I don't know when it's going to end. Like, Give yourself some sort of time, because to be honest, if you did this and you said, I'm going to give it 6 months and I'm going to try my best, and you feel the same, like, honestly, I don't know. It depends. If you're like married, like maybe give it more than 6 months. But if you're just dating and you're like 20, you know what I mean? Like you're like 23, I don't know. And you're dating someone that you don't really want to be with, and you don't really, it's taking like an arm and a leg to make it work. Like, and you don't have kids and you don't live together. Like, I don't know. To some extent, I'm kind of like, you're attached to this person. Oh my God, the rain is insane. I need to wrap this up. But yeah, it's like, to some extent, like you're still unattached. You're not married. Like if you're that fucking miserable, you don't need to drive yourself that mad. If this isn't your person, like this is kind of the time to work that out. Do you know what I mean? You're not in a situation where you can't leave. So like, it's not the end of the world if you have to dump your boyfriend when you're like in your 20s and you know you're not married and you don't have kids and blah blah blah. It's like, it's not that serious. It's like horrible, but it's not worth that sometimes. It's like, I think sometimes you forget how young you are and how okay it is to just be like, I don't think this one's for me. Even if you want it to be, sometimes it's just not. Anyway, I am gonna go because this rain is very loud and I've yapped for a very long time. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hopefully if you are watching this and you were like me a couple years ago, maybe it was like something in it was kind of what you needed to hear. That's kind of the goal. But yeah, if not, maybe you enjoyed it anyway. But yeah, thank you for listening. Again, these episodes, I am putting them on Spotify. I said that last time, but I keep saying it at the end of the video rather than at the start, which is stupid. But yeah, thank you for listening, and I will talk to you next Tuesday.